Hello, my name is James Pope, and I am a schizophrenic.
You're a madman.
So, after we've just had Mental Health Awareness Week, I now wanted to take the time to make a video and explain how I'm a schizophrenic and how I've dealt with it and the things that I've done or how I've suffered, whatever, right? I'm going to speak about my personal experience because I'm a strong believer in openly talking about your problems or beliefs in the pursuit of a better world. And so, on that note, let's get into it. Oh, lovely. Right. So, my whole life, I've heard voices ever since I was a child.
I see dead.
So, when I was a little boy, I used to live in the grounds of a private school in Surrey, in England, called Cranley School. Very expensive private school, full of people who would get Ferraris for their birthdays and drive them around the private grounds, and they'd sit in a garage for the rest. It'd sit in a garage for the rest of its life and never see the light of day again. Those sorts of families, right? The sort of people who think you should walk in the mud and they shouldn't have to let you pass on the path because you go to the dirty public school. Anyway, so I used to walk around the fields there because my dad was the head of grounds and a groundskeeper there working there. So we had a property in the grounds. So I lived in the grounds. So it couldn't be claimed I was trespassing when I literally lived in the grounds. So I had access to all their facilities. They had like their own 9-hole golf course. They had an indoor and outdoor swimming pool. They had their own leisure centre. They had some of the best tennis courts you could imagine. Probably only second to Wimbledon at the time, I reckon. It was that good. And the Surrey Tennis Championships took place there every year, so it was like, quite a hot spot. And I'd walk around this field, because my family would be always arguing about something or other, fucking always arguing, a lot of them. So I just leave and go for a walk, so I didn't get caught up in the middle of it. And end up talking to these voices, or voice, thinking it was God, right? Now, obviously, I was baptised and raised in a Christian society. Cranley School was a very Christian place. It was heavily Christian and Catholic. And obviously, I think I even went to some Sunday schools when my mum needed a break from looking after me because of the little shit. And my infant school was a Christian school. We were all indoctrinated into Christianity. So I would walk around this field, hearing a voice, thinking it's God. And I would talk to the voice, thinking it's God. And I'll not go through the conversations we had because it's ridiculous to explain the conversations I had with a delusion or hallucination I attributed to be God as a 6, 7, 8-year-old child 30 or 25 years ago. I could do it, hyperbole, I could do it because I have hypothymesia, I could do it, but I don't think he's care about that. So I came to the conclusion after a while this person couldn't be God, because one time I was in the front garden with my parents and they asked me to do something, and the voice told me that my parents didn't love me, and I just turned to the side and was like, what the fuck? And my dad thought I wasn't listening, so slapped me across the head. And he'd be like, you're not listening, bosh, right? And I was like, oh, the voice has distracted me. And then the voice was like, if your parents loved you, they wouldn't have slapped you for that. And I'm sitting there like, that couldn't be God. Like I don't know. God started calling my parents bad people and that they weren't good people. And it's me as a child thinking this, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I don't think God would be telling a child that his parents are bad people when my parents weren't bad people. They're just humans who make mistakes. They're not perfect, and I don't think they would ever claim to be. Whether they admit to them or not is another thing, but we'll go to another thing. So yeah, when I was in science once, this is about year 10, I'm in science in Gleedland School in Cranley, and we were in the science department, and we could see over to the Cranley School fields beyond the Gleedland School boundary at the back of the field, and there's a guy walking along with an antenna, that's weird in the early 2000s, by the way. That might be normal these days. I don't think it is. But this guy's walking around with an antenna on this field. And my science teacher had a go at me for not paying attention. And I said to him, I can hear that guy over in the field in my head. And the science teacher looked gobsmacked, and he was like, James, you can't hear him, that's something else. I think he knew what I was. I didn't know what I was. But I also had therapy with a guy called Colin Young in year 11 and year 10 in high school for my grades were constantly always going up and up and up, and then suddenly stopped. It was just from shit at home. I'm not getting into it. And he said I was like him and that I was a schizophrenic, and I had to learn to live with the fact that I exist in two worlds. And it was the best. It's the best ever description I could give someone who's not a schizophrenic of being a schizophrenic, because you literally exist in two different realities. You exist in the reality everyone else lives in, and yourself, right? But you also exist in this reality in your mind, in which you can hear these delusions and these voices that no one else can hear. Now, you all think you live in that reality of your mind as well, because you've got your brain and then you've got reality. But in a schizophrenic, it's different. It's different. It's hard to separate the two, because obviously what you're hearing in your brain and your mind, although a delusion and hallucination, right, you can still hear it. So you could argue under philosophical technicality, it is real in the sense that it can be heard in one mind, but just because it can't be heard in all others doesn't mean it isn't real. But it is a hallucination and delusion that no one else can hear. So you have to accept it as not true in reality, because that is everyone else's reality, but only true in your personal reality of your brain. And differentiate and difference the two so that you can live in actual reality rather than get sucked into this non-reality and be an insane loony for the rest of your life. That's kind of how it is as a schizophrenic. It's very difficult. And when I moved up to Newcastle as well, I fell out of my family, and I moved in with a family in Chopwell. Very nice family, the Dixon family. I still have very fond memories of them all. Although I fell out with Tony in the end, he was a very good friend. He was a very good person to me, and I had great fun playing World of Warcraft with him and living at his house. And his family were very nice to me. His mother was very nice to me. His father was very nice to me. And I used to sit sometimes and talk to his dad on a night time. And it just so happens his dad was a diagnosed schizophrenic, I believe. I don't know which type. So he was on medication and stuff, and I can only hope to live to such an age that he was at. And he was a really nice man, very warm and caring. Obviously, he had his own troubles, but he was a very nice man. And he would sit and talk to me, and he would tell me I was just like him. Oh, you're just like me. And my whole life, people have been telling me I was a schizophrenic, and it just didn't register. It just didn't register. It's almost as if I was hypnotized not to accept it, no matter how many people told me it. And me as a child would have asked for that sort of thing, because I wouldn't want to use it as an excuse for misbehavior or not doing something. And I don't want to use schizophrenia as an excuse for anything. Schizophrenia is not an excuse for murder. It's not an excuse for assaulting people. It's not an excuse for abusing people. It's not even really an excuse for me to have a go at society for mistreating mentally disabled people, because they're not mistreating me currently. Well, apart from social stigmas, but and that's one of the things about paranoid schizophrenia, right? Sorry, schizophrenia, right? I had to check my medical record and see what I was diagnosed with and things. And so, right, this is where it gets funny. Now, everything I've said there was very serious, and I have got schizophrenia. I don't think anyone's out to get me. I don't think people are out to get me. I'm not being harassed currently, but because I have been persecuted and harassed in the past, when I talk about it, people mistake that as my paranoid schizophrenic delusions and dismiss it. I think. But that could be a paranoid delusion. So here's where the funny part gets in, right? We've been serious here. I'm gonna get comical, right? Here we go. Wait. So wait there. Just add this in here. Right. So it says here, right? If you go to paranoid schizophrenia, if you go to paranoid schizophrenia, go to the symptoms right here. It says delusions, fixed false beliefs that are not based in reality, particularly persecutory delusions where a person believes they're being harmed or harassed. Notice it does say they're being harmed or harassed, right? Now, I don't believe I am being harmed and harassed, although some people are a bit of, douchebags on Facebook. they're not. They're trying to harm me emotionally with some hurty words, but no, I'm not being persecuted or harassed currently. Currently, no. But historically, I was. Well, when the police give you lifelong injuries during a mental health detainment, because you're mentally unwell, that's persecution. They don't need to give you lifelong injuries when you're being not listened to by the government and the police over things because of this diagnosis on your medical record, and they just think it's a hallucination. That's persecution. You're not listening to this man because of his medical problem, thinking it's an illusion. You should check. You should check, right? So the thing is, I was actually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in 2016. In 2016, I was paranoid. I was a paranoid schizophrenic. You see, what had happened was, my whole life the voices have been like whispers in the dark. It's like almost hearing someone upstairs or next door. It's annoying, but it's not unmanageable. It's not like the end of the world. It's just annoying. It's like sitting on a bus and people won't shut the fuck up, sort of thing. It's manageable. You can deal with it, right? But my issue was when I got my nerve injury and I was crippled and trying to learn to walk again correctly. I kind of forgot about the fact that I'd heard voices my whole life. And then when they started again, and it wasn't whispers in the dark, it was like being shouted at with a megaphone in your ear. I could literally not even hear the sound of my own thoughts over the sound of these hallucinations and delusions. And so as a result of that, it took over. It kind of took over my brain, and I became detached from reality. I ended up believing that these hallucinations and delusions I was hearing was actually people in the real world doing this to me with technology. Because obviously I'm able to understand technology very well. I'm a computer engineer, fix computers. I'm good with computers, so I understand how it can be done. With Bluetooth and wireless and radio technology, you can easily bounce a sound wave off some sort of metal device or technology into someone's ear if there was some sort of receiver in it. So I came to the delusion that I had been bugged, right? Bugged. Now, here's how I came to the delusion. On the night of my injury, when I was sexually assaulted and nearly died from the accidental fall, there was this kid going round who was boyfriends with Daniel Scaffron or having sex with Daniel. I don't know what, but I thought it was Louis Armstrong. I don't know if it was, but for some reason I thought that was someone I knew called Louis Armstrong, who had grown up and was now dating Scrafton because it looked like him, was the height of him, and was weird like him. Anyway, during the night of this party we were having where I had my accidental sexual assault, this guy was giving people wet willies. Sounds stupid when I'm talking about him and his boyfriend or whatever. I'm talking about wet willies. But you know what I mean? Someone licks the end of the finger, puts it in the air. Except he was doing it with a paper clip that he had unfolded. And so when he did it to me, he cut my ear on the way out because I was like, what the fuck? And it cut my ear. And so my ear was literally bleeding. And so years later down the line, when I started hearing these voices overwhelmingly and thought, oh, I must have been bugged. I was thinking, how did I get bugged? When did that happen? So then I came to the conclusion, the delusion, that it had been then, the night of my injury. Because on the night of my injury, the reason I went to jump to the back door to try and help my friends and myself get back in because we were locked out was because I wanted to be nice to my friends. But just before I made the jump, some voice in my head, after the paperclip thing, told me to jump like Spider-Man. And so I did, and nearly killed me. And so, sadly, fell into psychosis as a result of shit like that. So, literally, one thing I will advise people, don't put things in the ears of schizophrenics, because months or years later, they might become insane, and then think you're doing the voices to them, and try and stop the voices in some way. It could literally cost you your life. Don't put things in the ears of schizophrenics, people. Unfortunately, I ended up thinking that the police were doing this to me, because the police they'd wrongly charged me, they'd broken my human rights, they'd taken me away with my baby. That night of my injury and the assault, weeks later, some daft cunt tried to pull a knife on me in my own house, And it took the police 4 hours to turn up. This fucker pulled a knife on me in my own house. Took them 4 hours to turn up. 4 hours! And I made the complaint that if I was a woman, it wouldn't have taken them 4 hours. It was sexual discrimination. So I had already had this belief that the police were persecuting me before I'd ever been held under the Mental Health Act, before ever been had any interaction with the police or anything like that before in my life. And so then when it came to getting wrongly arrested and charged, I just went loopy. I literally went fucking loopy. Like, the police were persecuting me, blah, blah, blah. And they were. But the problem was, I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia for believing the voices in my head were out to get me and were trying to harm me. That's what I got diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia for. I was trying to protect my daughter, thinking these people were a danger to her and myself, but I didn't care about my own safety. I was only concerned about protecting my daughter. Now, as a result of becoming so detached from reality with these voices and hallucinations, I was then perceived by the government as a threat to my own fucking child and society, and held on the Mental Health Act. It was later worked out I was never a threat to my family or anyone, and I was discharged. You know, I'm here, I'm fine. I'm okay. Everything's okay, apart from historically. So, when we're talking about the paranoid schizophrenia here, right? It says here, being harmed or harassed. Being harmed or harassed. Now, I am not currently being harmed or harassed by anyone. Apart from my dog's a bit of a bitch sometimes, but she's lovely otherwise. She's just a bit of a whiny shit. So I'm not being harassed or persecuted by anyone currently. So currently, I am not a paranoid schizophrenic. But the medical record and the government's record have me down as a paranoid schizophrenic, and so I don't think they actually, one, believe the things I state and say, and two, I think society doesn't believe the things I state and the things I believe as a result of my diagnosis from 2016. But I was a schizophrenic my whole life. Before being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, I became a paranoid schizophrenic and have then returned back to being a undifferentiated or residual schizophrenic, whatever you want to call it. Someone with symptoms of schizophrenia but doesn't have massive complications that stop them being able to live a reasonably normal life. Okay? So, although I have a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia on my medical record, I am not actually a paranoid schizophrenic, and I don't think I have been a paranoid schizophrenic since about 2018 or 19. Ever since they took me off the community treatment order and I got put back onto quetiapine, I was fine. I was fine. I had to lie to these people at the hospital and tell them that I was not hearing voices anymore just to get out of the cage. You know, just to let these people free me and give me my human rights back, I had to lie to them that I wasn't hearing voices anymore when I'm a schizophrenic, right? I hear voices my entire life. I'm always going to hear voices. The only problem is when I can't manage it and deal with it and it becomes problems. But I can manage it and deal with it just fine. I always have. I've managed to do some of the most amazing achievements you could ever imagine. I'll not list them. All through struggling with schizophrenia and injury and, you know, these sorts of things. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Your disabilities don't limit your achievements. It's your self-awareness that limits your ability to... If you believe you can achieve great things, you will achieve great things. If you don't believe you can achieve great things, you'll never achieve great things unless you get lucky, basically. So I wanted to talk about schizophrenia from my point of view as a schizophrenic, because you all hear about it from a doctor's point of view or a book, or you very rarely hear about it from the actual schizophrenic. And the truth is, most people like me don't come back. Once they get lost into the psychosis and the delusions of listening to the voices, talking to the voices, and almost ignoring the real world to the point that they pay that much attention to the delusions and hallucinations. Once they get to that point, that they're almost lost, and there is very little chance of bringing them back, because every day they're doubling down the neurons of those delusions and hallucinations, making them stronger, more efficient, easier to do, and it's almost like they're falling further and further into a well of darkness they'll never return from. So I find it really sad sometimes when I see people with schizophrenia who are lost to the delusions. They're walking around talking to voices that don't exist, that no one else can hear. They don't care how they're perceived, and everyone else looks at them in disgust, and I look at them with sadness and embarrassment that I can't help them come back from it. And the truth of the matter is, not everyone who goes insane returns to sanity. And I am one of the fortunate ones. I am one of the lucky ones. I was made unwell through various variables and circumstances, not all through my own making, some of which were, not all. And here I am, like a fucking phoenix, reborn, more beautiful and stronger than ever. But I just wanted to kind of speak out about this whole schizophrenia thing, because the only time most people hear about schizophrenics is some guy who's murdered a child or hurt a woman or killed innocent people because the voices in his head told them to. And on Hollywood movies were depicted as these psychotic killers and mass murderers. And then on Netflix documentaries, it's always this slow descent into madness, and some bloke starts cutting people's faces off and wearing them. Very rarely is there like a very positive schizophrenic story where, despite all trouble and adversity, this person triumphed and had a good life and made a difference in this world. I would like to try and be that story. It just concerns me that later in life my mental health might deteriorate, and that might not be the case. But I don't have control over the future. I can only try and control the here and now, and do what's best today. And so I thought today I would make a video about what it's like to be a schizophrenic. And it's difficult, honestly, it's really difficult. I hear things no one else hears. I'll walk down the street and someone will walk past me, and my brain will make out as if I've heard their thoughts. And I haven't heard their thoughts, I'm not a mind reader. But I've never heard this voice before, and it came from their direction, and it was only when they walked past me and they looked at me, and I didn't even really pay attention to them, so how would I know what their voice was going to sound like? And you just think like, oh no, it's just a delusion, it's just a hallucination. But there is the plausible possibility that the human brain is wrongly interpreting other electrical signals as thought through medical problem, and it then plays them out in your brain as if it was you, and then you could mistake that as you, even though it's an exterior signal. So I'm not saying that I can read minds, but it may be the case that when I walk past a magnet as a schizophrenic, I'm more prone to having errors in my brain, or faulty processing, shall we call it. And so due to that, I might then therefore be more likely to become mentally ill around certain things or certain people. And certain, you know, it's kind of like autism, I guess, in a way, schizophrenia. You know, certain things and certain things can make you unwell, really unwell. Like putting someone in a cage and forcing a needle up their arse, claiming you're trying to help them when, no, you're not, right? That sort of shit, right? That, lobotomies, forced electrotherapy, that sort of shit, right? So yeah, life as a schizophrenic is hard, and I don't wish it on anyone. But despite what my medical record might say that I'm a paranoid schizophrenic, I haven't been a paranoid schizophrenic since about 2018-19. As soon as I was released from the mental health services, I do not feel anyone has been out to get me, or I've been persecuted or harassed. I have been dealing with historic harassment, so my family and that used to go around telling everyone I was a lying, thieving, drug addict, blah, 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 blah. So like, people I hadn't seen in 20 years, family members I never saw. So I considered that harassment. They've been harassing me for 20 years. That's not a hallucination or a delusion. These people would tell me what they said. Like, it's not as if it was all in my mind. And it's not as if they would deny that they did this. They literally looked hundreds and thousands of people in the eye and told people negative things about me. It's not a lie. It's a fact, right? And that's harassment. And the police also did harass me. Like, they gave me lifelong injuries. You know, other people might not see it that way, and I accept that. But when you're given post-traumatic stress disorder because the police didn't do their jobs properly, and then you prove that you were not guilty of what they charged you with, and they just carry on ignoring you, And then so you become mentally unwell. So the police then get sent out to violently assault you and put you in a cage, and you get forced medication, all because the police. You start having a massive issue with the police, and so I still believe that the police persecuted me historically. They're not currently persecuting me. The last incident I've had with the police is when my family tried to claim me posting on Facebook about all the things they did was harassment. And the police turned up at my door claiming, the family's phoned and it's harassment. And I was like, no, it's not. And I looked at them, I was like, are you aware about what the posts on Facebook are relating to? As if, have you read them? And they hadn't read them. They started getting aggressive. It was like, Mr. Pope, we're just doing our job. And I looked at them and I was just like, fine, whatever. I understood they were just doing their job, but they had clearly taken a side. And they're supposed to be impartial. So they hadn't considered the fact that these posts on Facebook were regarding attempted murder, child abuse, parents making their child steal off a school with African coins because they're tight-ass bastards. They hadn't considered that me posting about my harassers on Facebook wasn't actually harassment. It was part of my post-traumatic stress disorder therapy. And I was having post-traumatic stress disorder therapy because of what my family did and what the police did. And then my family had phoned the police, who had turned up at my door and accused me of harassment. What? You couldn't make it up. I swear you couldn't make it up. You could not make it up. I was laughing because they had clearly not been impartial. And if they ever tried to fucking say they were, I could prove they wouldn't have been. I've got a video recording when they came to my door. I've got a webcam in my front window. I don't know if the police noticed, but yeah. So it was crazy, right? So I was harassed and persecuted historically by my family and the police. Yes, but I'm not currently being, as far as I'm aware. I don't think anyone's out to get me. So I'm not currently a paranoid schizophrenic. I'm just a schizophrenic. Just a schizophrenic. I have schizophrenia. I've always had schizophrenia. I will always have schizophrenia. It is true that drugs and alcohol make your schizophrenia worse. Definitely. But so does tea. So does tobacco. They don't ban tea and tobacco and make it illegal to have, do they? So there you go. Energy drinks do it as well. Energy drinks exacerbate my conditions sometimes. Not make it worse, but make it more obvious. So yeah, that's schizophrenia for you. Now, most schizophrenics aren't like me, unfortunately. They don't cope so well. They need people looking after them. They're not capable enough to look after themselves usually. And so, unfortunately, I get treated like that. And as a result of the British government treating me like I was incapable, I then went out of my way to prove how capable I really was by coming up with solutions to national problems in regards to the energy crisis, UK political issues. And I also tried to resolve scientific problems like the dark matter and dark energy solution. I tried to improve solar panels by suggesting we do solar trees instead of solar panels because it would have a larger surface area in a smaller space. I try to suggest how we could travel 90% the speed of light with an anti-gravity living quarters that use centrifugal force as artificial gravity for the living quarters so that we were able to travel in space for longer than our current methods. You all need to understand the difference between genius and insanity is explaining it. So if I wasn't able to explain how the artificial gravity worked on my ship, which is centrifugal force, by the way, spin it at a very specific rate, and the people will be held against one side, and you can treat that as the flaw. Now, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like walking on Earth, but it will be artificial gravity as such, and will create resistance on the muscles and ligaments and nerves similar to gravity, so that in space, people don't lose their bones and muscles as quickly, so they can travel in space for longer. It's simple stuff. Anyway. So yeah, that's the difference. Unfortunately, because some people don't understand what I'm saying, they think I'm insane. But those who do understand, I know full well, might know I'm crazy, but I am fucking right. So because the government had made me out to be so incapable, I went out my way to prove how capable I really was. In my opinion, solving the dark matter, dark energy problem. In 2017, I came up with a political manifesto to try and get Jeremy Corbyn in power for Brexit because I wanted the people to have power over the resources, not private companies. So that included GB Energy, the National Wealth Fund, giving 16, 17-year-olds the right to vote, lots of other things like green energy grants for free green energy systems on people's houses, that the energy could be used to repay the cost of the grant. So everyone in the country would end up with free solar panels and wind turbines, basically. It wouldn't cost a penny in the long run. And the water turbines in the drainage and sewage systems, so we were making money every time it rained. And then Keir Starmer ended up using all these ideas to win the last election. So it's like, I think I've just gotten to the point where I understand that nobody in this world believes me because of my diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia, but I'm no longer a paranoid schizophrenic because I don't think anyone's out to get me or after me. But because I talk about my historic persecution and harassment, people mistake that as thinking I currently think I'm being harassed and persecuted when I don't. It was historic, and don't listen to me. So I unfortunately don't get listened to because of my mental disability, which ironically is a minor form of persecution, but we'll forget that. Literally, it's so piss-taking, right? You bring this up, right? You bring this up, it's like, here. It says right there, right? Experiencing sensory perceptions, such as hearing voices that are not real, and hallucinations like that are the most common. Yeah, that's correct, I do have that. Thought and speech can be jumbled or muddled. Don't know what you're talking about. Don't know what you're talking about. A loss of interest in social activities and a desire to avoid people, including friends and family. I actually don't have a desire to avoid any of my friends and family. I would love to see my family. I just don't want to cause trouble. And I literally could not sit in the same room as them and not expect them to say sorry or to deal with historic problems. I'm not at the point where I can just forget everything they ever did and move on, because I'm still dealing with it now, because they haven't dealt with it. So I would expect them to deal with it. And so I avoid my family, not because I don't want to see them, but because I don't want to cause trouble. And that's what they see me as, in my opinion. They see me as trouble. So I'd rather stay away rather than be wrongly branded as trouble. Symptoms can be hard to maintain. Personal hygiene or hold a job. See, I've struggled with holding a job, and my personal hygiene is good, but not the best. But the issue, you see, is because I'm not suffering the delusion that I'm currently being harassed or harmed, then I'm not technically a paranoid schizophrenic. Although I have all the symptoms of a paranoid schizophrenic, and I do believe I was historically persecuted by the police and society. I was. People made a hate club about me in school and wore badges. That's persecution. Society allowed me to be put in a cage for being mentally unwell and force injected up the arse for 3 years. That's persecution, right? But what I got diagnosed for was believing the voices in my head were real and were out to get me and trying to harm my daughter. And so I went out looking for the source of these voices and was going to put a stop to it, right? So that's why I end up getting diagnosed. So although I have a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia, I don't hold the delusions that got me that diagnosis, and haven't held them delusions since about 2018 or 19. Ever since they took me off the community treatment order, and I was put on back on quetiapine, that they took me off, I've been fine. And I told them at the start of the community treatment order that this medication made me unwell, it's not helping me. And I had to lie to them and be like, look, yeah, I'm not hearing voices anymore, just to get them to leave me alone. Like, I'm sick of having to lie to people to leave me alone. I don't like lying. The only time I will lie is if it's better than harming me or someone else. And it has to be an extreme. So if someone was like coming up to me and be like, oh, do you think I'm fat? And they'd be clearly fat, I wouldn't want to hurt their feelings. So I would be like, well, you're not skinny. You know, it's difficult. But I had to lie to the British courts, right? that I was guilty of a crime I wasn't guilty of just to get home to my child. And I've now proven with evidence that they feared for their safety because they violently assaulted me, not because I shouted at them for violently assaulting me. And they still haven't dealt with that. That was persecution. Sexual discrimination. I wasn't persecuted because of my schizophrenia then. That was a hate crime against males. Sexual discrimination by the British government, breach of the Equality Act 2010. And it was also a breach of EU laws and the Human Rights Act, ECHR. So, yeah, it's difficult because whenever I talk about the persecution of the police, people are now going to think that I'm on about those hallucination voices that I was on about, and I'm not. And then they don't believe me, or I'm dismissed, and I don't know, it's weird. I almost feel like no matter how much I can help people, they won't let me because they don't think I can. Because they think I've got this disability that stops me being able to help them. Or that I'm not right, or I'm delusional and have these stupid beliefs. Yet no one can explain to me what my delusions are. They try and make up shit like I think I know it all. No, I don't. The one thing I know is that I know nothing. And if I thought I knew it all, I wouldn't treat each day as a learning experience and a school day. Every day I learn something new. Every damn day. I never stop learning, so how could I possibly think I know it all? I wouldn't have the ability to learn because I think I know it all, so I wouldn't accept anything new. So I wouldn't learn. Anyway, it's called an implication, complicated implication, and you get people who think I'm bragging when I post about my achievements on Facebook and things, or being boastful. And the truth is, I'm just proud of my achievements. Like, I literally spent 14 years learning to walk again, and then I've achieved some great things, like amazing things, all through that period of time, including raising a wonderful child, becoming first in Britain on certain things. And I'm proud of my achievements. And when you tell people that you're proud, they see it as a negative. They just don't seem to have the ability to feel happiness for others. And they take it as in you're thinking you're better than other people because you're proud of your achievements. No, that's not how it works. Just because I am proud that I'm number one in Britain for grenade launchers doesn't mean I think I'm better at the game than everyone. Just because I solved the dark matter, dark energy problem doesn't mean I understand physics and science better than a qualified physicist or science. I just am good at solving problems. I am very good at solving problems. It's not puzzles, problems. Just struggle with some of my own problems, that's all. So yeah, I'll try not to make this video much longer because I've been talking for a while now, but anyone who has schizophrenia out there, trust me, you can live a normal life. You can make this world a better place. You can have people, you can surround yourself with people who genuinely love you and care about you if you treat others the right way and behave in a way that people want to be around you and respect you. You can live a perfectly normal, happy life. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to lie to you as a schizophrenic, to a schizo, and tell you it's easy. But it can be done. It can be done. You don't have to chop your ear off because you're trying to stop the voices, because that won't stop the voices. You'll just be a guy who's chopped his ear off, all right? Okay? Don't do something stupid. The most important thing as a schizophrenic is to be able to differentiate between the hallucination and reality. And if you can't do that, you will struggle, I'm afraid. You need to learn to do that. That's my best advice. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. It's a very personal thing, this, to me, and I do feel that people with my condition are persecuted with a social stigma because of Hollywood and movies and documentaries on certain mass murderers and serial killers. And I understand it. I completely understand it. It's just unfair that I'm expected to be a bad person because of a disability I was born with. And yet I try to be a better person than everyone else. And nobody seems to really notice it. It gets overlooked. And the only thing people focus on is my condition. And it seems a bit unfair, really, that no matter how hard I work, no matter how much good I do in this world, people are only going to remember me as a paranoid schizo. It seems a bit unfair, really, doesn't it? Yeah. So I thought I'd make this video. Bit of awareness. Have a good one. Peace. Live long and prosper. Okay? Thumbs up. Wanker.